All right, welcome back to the Better Everyday podcast, where we're unlocking our best self one episode at a time. I'm David Garcia, and
Grace Garcia.
this is my beautiful wife.
Oh.
So we are on another episode, and today we're going to be talking about one of the things I'm kind of passionate about, and whenever I've given somebody advice, I always kind of bring this up, and it's that there's always two sides to every coin. And what I mean by that is we always have a choice. We could take an instance where we go through something tough, and in that moment, we make a choice. Let's say, for example, I had, let's say, somewhat of a rough childhood. Maybe not even childhood, it's more young adulthood. And I had, family issues at home. And my father also had family issues at home in regards to his childhood and the way that he decided for his life to kind of unfold was different than how I chose for it. And I don't know if you've heard, but there's so many people that blame their childhood, that blame their parents, that blame their wife, their husband, some sort of loved one. It's always somebody else's fault. And they don't take responsibility for their own actions and their own decisions. And so let's talk about that. What is your opinion on that per se? Do you feel like we always have a choice, or do you think that there's sometimes that we don't?
No, I think we always have a choice. I'm trying to think of a scenario where they wouldn't have a choice, but I believe in a God who gives us free will. That could be another topic on its own. That's people get heated about that, but yeah, I think you're right. I feel like it's a mixture of nature versus nurture. And we get to decide if maybe nature is not on our side. Are we going to then change our environment?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's certain, stimuli, certain things that we can control. And I think we have more control than we give ourselves credit. Just the fact of changing our mindset then changes our actions. Changing our actions changes our day. Changing our day, bless you.
Oui.
Changing our day changes our week, so on and so forth, till we look back and we're like, wow, we're not who we used to be.
Yeah. Do you ever remember a time where you had to make a tough choice?
The only one I think of is because it's in the near past, is my first year teaching.
That's right.
That's horrible.
Tell us about that.
So since I can remember, as a little girl, I knew what a teacher was and I wanted to be a teacher. I think in life, that kind of went in and out of my life, And then I remember when I told you, okay, I think I'm going to be a teacher. As when our kids are little, it's a good career path to have. And I got student teaching under contract, which is a blessing in itself because you basically have to teach for free. And I got an offer that they're going to pay me to be a teacher. And then I took it with not much thought. I don't regret it to this day. But that first week, the first week of working, I would come home and cry. And you're just like, what? You picked this. Why are you crying? This is so hard. That I never knew what anxiety was until that first year. Just the feeling of dreading every single day, dreading the drive. It was bad. I know this is TMI, but diarrhea just thinking about it. I'd get anxiety to the point where physically I was not feeling well, headaches, my stomach. Yeah. And then there's so many times I wanted to quit, so many times. And you kind of didn't let me, so I don't know if I had a choice. But I just like, I'm going to toughen it out. I'm going to finish the year. And yeah, I finished that school year. And I'm glad, because I think if I had the chance to quit, or if I wanted to quit and actually took it, because I think part of me thinks if you said, okay, quit, I don't think I would have done it anyway. I'm just like that type of person that, like, I say something and I'm emotional. We talked about it yesterday in this podcast. It's like a little firecracker. And then after, I'm like, oh, wait, it got real.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I would have quit, it would have fed into my identity of like, it's too hard. You can't do hard things,
Mm-hmm.
which is a dangerous path to go. Like, at least that's a dangerous idea to like be tempted with. And so I think I had a choice. Like, am I going to continue the year or not? And I continued. And that choice led me to like a better opportunity. And now I'm like, there's no one that's going to tell me my district is not the best district in the world.
So you say that you don't regret that decision.
Mm-hmm.
What's the reason why you don't regret it? Or reasons?
I think it's reasons. I don't regret it because A, it was paid. I don't think we could have gone without my pay, but it would have been very difficult. So that's awesome. Like, not a lot of people get that opportunity. B, it made me the teacher I am today. Like, now I'm confident in my classroom management skills. Like, I complain about students and like, oh, I have had a hard day, but I've had no hard days like my first year. Like, not even close. Like, when I tell you those kids, I'm not going to say like I don't like those kids. Like, I love those kids because they all come from bad backgrounds. Like, if you sit down with each one of them, your heart will be broken. But the environment was like toxic for a teacher. And it made me a better teacher. It made me grateful. Like, every time from the little things, like from the point of we didn't have phones in our classroom. So the walkie-talkie would chirp. Can you imagine? Like, you just got your class quiet and they're chirping not for you, but for someone else. Like, for like the most basic things. Like, now I find gratitude and thank God for a phone in my classroom. Thank God because we have passing period. Like, the tiniest joys that teachers take it for granted. And now I don't take that for granted.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are 3 reasons.
So when you look at that circumstance and you see it as a two-sided coin, do you feel like there was a right answer and a wrong answer? Or do you think both could have been justified as right?
I think they both could have been justified as right.
Okay, fine.
Was that the wrong answer?
No. I mean, I'm asking your opinion. Okay, so what about this? There's 2 sides to every coin. In that circumstance, do you feel like one benefited you more than the other? Like, let's say you would have quit. What happens then?
Because I think you can justify like quitting. Like, it'd been my sanity, my mental health, our family would have been good in that moment. I think, but going through, I don't know a lot about fitness, so no, that's probably not a good idea. I'm like trying to find a metaphor to compare it to. Because in my head, it's like a growth spurt. I don't know if you're supposed to like tear your muscle, if that helps it make bigger muscles. Is that right?
Yeah, you tear the muscle and then it rebuilds stronger.
Okay. So I am right. I was like, I don't know if you're supposed to tear your muscle. So in this scenario, I could have quit and I would have saved myself so many sore days. Right? Where it's like, it's for my mental health. I'm valid. Like, I was going crazy, like physically, emotionally, like spiritually crazy. I was losing my mind. And you can't say like, I need self-care. You know, I can't pour from an empty cup, whatever. Like, those are all valid. And I would have saved myself so many sore days. But I tore the muscle. It hurt so bad. Like, weeks and years, or a year, months of going through that. And my muscle built now. I'm like, this is pretty dang stuff. Like, as a teacher, I'm a pretty good teacher. So yeah.
So you said that you quit and you could have justified it, but what good would have come from you quitting? do you think, if any?
I think it would have been, it goes back to the instant and delayed gratification.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been that instant gratification. I would have gotten mentally stable. I would not have had stress. I think, but I think you can do that. Maturity, you know, you can control your not bringing arguments home or whatever, even in the long run, if I took the other choice. But if I did quit, I think we would have been better in a better home environment in that moment.
In that moment, but do you think, okay, so let's keep talking about this in our marriage and the two sides of every coin. I believe that if it didn't happen then, it was going to happen eventually, regarding like us going through something tough and where you're going through all that anxiety, it's affecting your health, it's affecting your mental being. Like,
you think no matter what job I had, that would have happened.
Not no matter what job. I'm just saying, like, soon, I feel like we had to go through that because we had a lot of breaking points through that year.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of breaking points. And some way, somehow, we kept choosing to keep moving forward. Although sometimes it was tough.
On crutches.
I remember me and you just were not on the same page at all.
Yeah, it was a bad year.
And I think I take responsibility in regards to, I didn't know how to handle that emotion. And, we talked about it in counseling, which really opened up my eyes in regards to me personally when I don't know how to fix something, because as men, we're fixers, we're doers. Like when somebody brings an issue to us, we're like, this is how you solve it.
Yeah.
But when I don't know how to solve it, or I think I'm solving it and the problem keeps happening, then I go into, I have no idea how to deal with this. And that made me shut down. And it made me shut down because I didn't know how to deal with it. That's how it got manifested, as in, like, I would get angry at you.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, I'm tired of hearing it. But in reality, in between the lines, what I'm saying is I just can't figure it out. And I feel like I suck. I feel like I failed. I feel like I'm being the good husband that I need to be. And a lot of it had to do with, I didn't know how to tap into the emotions. I didn't know how to have empathy. I didn't know how to just sit there with you. I just wanted to fix it. I wanted to be done with this headache. Because it was the first week, I remember you came crying home every single day.
It was bad.
And then every single day you would send me texts, or you would come home and be like, this is everything that went wrong with my day. And I'd be like, was there anything good of your day? But I feel like you were just so consumed by the situation.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to deal with it. And so I think although we went through that hard time, we chose to keep moving forward by the grace of God.
Yeah.
And I believe now we can say we became stronger from it. And it's like you were using the analogy of the muscle ripping and becoming stronger. Like, it took a while for the muscle to get stronger, because if we were on a boat, we were in the middle of a storm, we were about to drown. But I can appreciate it now that we went through that. And the crazy thing is, I always tell everybody, when you're in the box, when you're in the situation, when you're in the storm, you don't see much. It's not until you pass the storm, it's not until you get out of the box where you're like, oh, I understand why that happened, And I remember, like, we went through what we went through, and I was like, dang. And like I was saying before, my childhood or my young adulthood was kind of rough. And I remember what I gained from that rough time at home was I came out of that saying, if I can make it through this, I can make it through anything. But I remember when you went through that first year of school, I was like, I don't know if I can make it.
I remember you even telling me, like, and this might be like dark, but you texting me, you overcame your mom's death. Like, you can do it. And I was like, I don't think I can. Like, it was that bad.
Yeah.
Where I was like, this, I can't even compare right now. I don't know if it was because it was in the moment, and the moment always seems bigger, but I'm like, the emotional, like, damage, the emotional just exhaustion of like day in and day out. But now looking back, like just context, like I left my daughter when she was 4 months. So it could have been a mix of postpartum depression. It could have been everything was just like too fast. But I don't wish that on anyone. And going with what you said, so in your analogy of the coin, so you're saying there's always a better choice.
Personally, my conviction, yes, there is.
Yeah.
And it goes back to there is one that is going to make you grow.
Yeah.
And there is one that is just going to satisfy your present. One is going to benefit you in the long run, and the other one is just going to benefit you in the short run.
Yeah.
And to become stronger, we have to do harder things. And so, yeah, when we went through that, it was really tough, but we kept choosing to keep moving forward. And I appreciate you for that, for sticking with me, although we had a really, really rough. But again, if we hadn't gone through that, eventually I think we were going to go through it. Because we've said it before, we're just not people that like to stay stagnant. We always keep trying to achieve more. And so with achieving more comes harder situations and harder circumstances.
Or I think it's like, going back to the fitness analogy, like we're constantly trying out our muscle. Like we overcome something and they're like, okay, let's test this out. What can be our limit? Like we want to grow more. And we always find ourselves with like, is this too much? Which people can see it as a bad thing, you know, like just rest, enjoy your life. And I was going to say that, do you think there could be maybe 3 different outlooks to take when you're faced with a challenge? I'm thinking one might be you're just going through it. You don't like the situation. You kind of being passive. Like, I'm just going to go through this. One could be like, nah, I'm out of here. Like, deuces. I don't want to be in here, this situation.
Okay.
And then a third is like changing your outlook and making the best of it. Because if I had to look at my first year, I was about to name the school, my first year, I think it was more like of a passive, like, I'm going to get through this, but I don't know how. Like, it was just going through the motions. And I think there's one where you're like, change your mindset. Like, take everything good that you can from it. And I'm like, I physically cannot. Like, I don't know how to do that. Yeah.
And that's what I was just about to say. Like, every single step of the way, we are responsible for our actions, for our emotions, for how we react to things. Because it's like the law of life. Things are going to happen.
Yeah.
We can't control that. But what we can control is how we react to it. And then it goes back to the same thing. Like when we're in the storm, like we know that's the crazy thing. We might have, or we might be equipped with the knowledge and the wisdom to be able to go through things. And we're, I'd say, pretty decent at giving people advice, but we're looking at it outside the box. And that's why when people are so convicted and telling somebody, you just got to do this and you just got to do that and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, hold on. You're not in the box with them. Step in the box with them and see if you're saying the exact same thing. Let me wait until you go through some hard times and let's see how good you are at following your own thing that you're saying. And so, but regardless, we could be in a box. We could be in a box of just darkness, a box of shadows, a box of just storms, desert, whatever you want to like paint the picture as. But again, we're still responsible for what we're going to do. And I think for me, I would label it somewhat as like a championship mindset. Like, again, we just embrace the truth that we're going to go through hard times. And it's just like you know that I've ran like Spartans and I've done the high rocks. The hardest thing that I ever had to do was the high rocks. And I like those hard things, challenges, because that's where you see where your mental fortitude is at.
Mm.
Because the high rocks is so far the hardest thing that I've had to do in regards to
Yeah.
like these challenges. And I like that it sucked, because it sucked. My cardio was not where I wanted it to be. And so it sucked. And so it sucking made me have to turn on my mind as in like, are you going to keep going or are you going to quit?
Yeah.
And for me to make the choice of, I'm going to keep going. I may go slower than I want to go, but I'm going to keep going. I'm going to cross that finish line no matter what. I don't care if I'm crawling across that finish line, I'm going to make it through.
Mm.
And so in the same thing, it's the same thing in life. Hard things are going to happen,
Yeah.
but it's like, how are we going to persevere? You know, and the great thing is that we have faith.
Mm.
We have God to cling on to. If we're in deep relationship with him, we have him speaking to us. We have him speaking to us through prayer, through worship, through the word. We have him encouraging us. And, you know, he always speaks to us in regards to, do not be afraid. I'm with you. But again, when we're in the storm, we hear crashes. We hear the thunder. We hear the roar of the wind.
Yeah.
And we start focusing. And that's another thing that I always talk about is what you focus on is going to amplify. So you've heard me say it before, Psalms 23:5, I prepare a table before you in the presence of my enemies. And the first question that I ask is, why in the presence of enemies? Why not, you know, in heaven? Why not with all my friends?
Mm.
And it's just paints the truth, the reality. Like we have both good and bad around us, and we choose what we focus on. If we focus on the table that God has prepared for us, then we're having a great time.
Mm.
If we focus on the enemy surrounding us, we're not having a great time, and we probably aren't even noticing the table that's been prepared before us. And so I feel like we are responsible. And that's one thing that people don't like, is taking that responsibility. It's so easy, and people are so quick to just say no because you triggered me. And let's be honest, you used to say that to me all the time. This is your fault. I'm acting like this because of you. And it's so easy to do that. It's like that kid saying, I'm rubber and you're glue. Whatever you say bounces off me and sticks to you. Like, I don't want the responsibility, because if I'm responsible, that means I have to do something about it, and I don't want to do something about it.
Yeah.
And the people that really want to become better every day will take the responsibility for themselves and choose to become a greater version of themselves.
Mm.
Because I believe if you're choosing the comfortability, like you said, you have three choices. Either you do nothing, and even that doing nothing is still, I believe, on the negative side in regards to, like you always say, if you think you're stagnant, you're not stagnant, you're falling behind.
Yeah.
There's the getting out of it, which is you're just seeking comfortability. And some people, it comes to perspective. Like some people, that's all they want. I want to live a just comfortable life. And they believe that's what their purpose is here on earth.
Mm.
And then the third person is, okay, I'm going through this hard time. I'm going to learn from this. This is an opportunity. So.
Yeah. And I think it's that victim mentality. Just no one's going to say like, oh, I'm being a victim, or I'm the victim here.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what it is. And that's how you say, like, the American mindset, like, woe me, woe me. And our society feeds into it. And I think it is very hard to, like, get out of. First, you have to realize that you've been doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then take back your control. Like, with baby steps, like, take back. Like how you said, we always have a choice. And I think that's why it starts with your identity, because in the Bible, like you have every excuse in the book. We're born sinners.
Mm-hmm.
It was Adam. No, it was Eve. It was my parents opened that door to sin. It's a generational curse. Like the enemy's roaring like a lion. He's in music. He's in like you have every single excuse in the book.
Yeah.
And that's why I think Paul always tells us, like, you are a saint. You are more than a conqueror. Like, reminding us of, like, Jesus' sacrifice. And you are now clothed in his righteousness, of, like, our identity. Because as soon as I think the enemy knows, that's why I think the enemy always attacks our identity, because the enemy knows that if we believe our identity 100% and take back our choice, because we believe in who we are and what we're capable of, like, he loses his power because we took that power back.
Okay. And as a person, well, let me ask you, do you feel like which of the three people do you feel like you usually are? Are you the person that perseveres through? Are you the person that tries to get out of it to go back into her comfort zone? Or are you a person that just, let me stay stagnant, I'm just going to weather the storm and we'll see how I come out at the end?
Usually, I'm trying to think of, like, all my hardships in life. Like, where did I think I'm like a little combo, you know? Like,
That's crazy.
Because I remember as soon as my mom passed away, I thought, this is my chance. This is my chance. I was raised, how they say, in a Christian household. I was raised in the church, even though the church is not like a building. But I said when my mom died, and it's funny because me and my little sister had this conversation. We're like, this is our choice to rebel. Like, we have every reason. Like, if they look at us, they're going to be like, oh, well, their mom died. You know, like, I'm going to go all out, sin, not hide it. Like, woo, this is my chance.
What was it that you wanted to do?
I don't even know, but it was just that pressure, I think, that we've given ourselves.
That pressure? What did you want to do?
I don't know.
Say it.
Like, just not go to church, like, be, like, clubbing, like, just.
Oh, you're so bad.
Let go. Whatever. Anyways, I remember thinking, like, this is my chance to just, like leave. Like, I don't want to deal with the situation. Maybe I think it's, just, like, walk away from it. Choose comfort. Choose what's easier. But then after, like, tempting that and thinking it, I think I'd, like, come to my realization it's not in me. Like, then I'm like, I need to come out better. Like, I need to get on the other side. I need to conquer this so that my testimony can help others. Like, same thing with, I think, anything. Like, even in our marriage, there's been moments where I'm just like, screw it. I don't care anymore. I give up. And then it's like, boom, it kicks in. Like, I don't want to say it's me. Maybe God made me this way. Maybe it's the three in me. Or maybe it's just God. Like, I have better for you. I get out of your feelings, your emotions, you know, like, enough is enough to, like, sulk and, oh, well, me, like, that victim mentality. So yeah, I'd say, like, it's tempting for a bit, like a little window right after the situation where I'm like, oh, let me just sulk and I'm the victim, poor me. And I'm justifying every reason. And then just something kicks in and I'm like, I just can't. Yeah. I think it's God's grace, maybe.
What advice would you give to somebody that through this conversation is reflecting and saying, I am a person that tries to escape hard things. I am a person that tries to hide in the bush or behind the bush and not take responsibility. What advice would you give that person?
I think feel your emotions. How I said, there's that window where I do allow myself to think everything negative, like journal it to God, get mad at God, get angry, like let your emotions out. You don't want to bury them and then, like, later on it explodes. Mm-hmm. So have that time and that grace where we're human, feel everything you need to feel. And then I always think how we've been talking about the last couple of podcasts, your community, like the people around you, where they won't let you stay there. Because I remember in both scenarios, I feel like when moments suck so bad with my mom's death, there was people reminded me like who I am. That makes it almost impossible to be like, I'm just going to sit here and be a horrible person or like rebel against God or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then same thing with this school situation, and it sucked and I wanted to quit. Like, you would remind me, like, you're not a quitter. Like, you've gone through harder stuff. Like, you can do this. And, like, surround yourself with people that won't let you quit because they know who you are.
Okay, let's be transparent and vulnerable,
Yeah.
because I feel like right now you are speaking outside of the box.
Correct.
But who I know you to be inside the box is like you can have this community and you'll shut them all out.
Oh, yeah, I do get unhealthy.
You're like, nah, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And especially for me, you don't want to hear it. I'm over here like, come on, babe, you could do it, blah, blah, blah. Just change your mentality. You're a champion, and blah, blah. And you're like, I feel like there's like a little spark and you're like, nah. And so let's like try to tap into that and try to speak to that person, like that grace. Think about you.
Antisocial grace.
Well, sure. Because right now you're talking about your community. But if somebody really doesn't want to hear it, or really just like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to be told to persevere. I don't want to be told to have that championship mindset. I don't want to be told that I got to do the hard things.
That's hard, though. Because, I mean, even then, like, I remember when my mom passed away, I didn't want to go to church. Like, I didn't. I think for maybe 1 week, Sunday, we didn't, or maybe 2, I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got there, I was all like, obviously, like, my mom just died. And I remember, I'm never going to forget Aldo. I don't know if you'll watch our podcast, but he reminded me, like, he's like, you're a worshiper. Like, what can you do besides worship or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
And he just told me that, and I'm like, he's right. And the song that was playing is like, si solo tú tienes palabras de vida, ¿a quién iré? And that song always reminds me, like, what, you know how I said, like, you have 2 choices?
Mm-hmm.
But in my head, it's like, what choice is going to lead to life, like to a fulfilling, purposeful life? Like, there is no other choice but to choose God, to choose to be a conqueror, to choose to be his daughter. And same thing, I think, with the second scenario when the school sucks, like, you kind of like not really said you don't have a choice, you're going to stick it through the year, but I kind of got those vibes.
That's what I basically said, yeah.
So I didn't have a choice. And I was like, I'm going to just stick it out through the year. So even though I didn't seek community and I wasn't all there, like, you still have people that are going to tell you or mold you or like shape you. And if, let's say, you miraculously like completely isolate where you don't even have like one person or your spot or anything, I think, and this might be rough because I don't know like what season you guys might find yourself like listening to this podcast, but I think that's why it's so important to have a relationship with God in every season. Like, try your best, because in the seasons when you walk away, that those seeds, those roots that you've set might be the only thing holding you down. Mm-hmm. Because I remember those moments I was mad at God. I did not want to read my Bible. Like, I'm talking about my mom's passing away. Every promise in the Bible, I'm like, how can you say your promises are fulfilled? Mm-hmm. Like, everything went back to like, no, God, you're not nice. Like, you're not a good father. And so I didn't read my Bible, like nothing. But I knew that I knew the truth. I knew it because I've read, even before my mom's death, like, there's a foundation there. So like, do yourself the favor of like seeking a relationship with God, because you don't know when that's the only thing that's going to bring you back. Not even you seeking it, but it's like the only thing that's standing.
Do you feel like there was growth from that? I'm going to follow that up with a thought that I have, but do you feel like there was growth from that? Let's say with your mom passing.
Growth?
Growth.
I think there was growth.
And the reason why I say that is how do you feel if somebody else passed that was near you?
Like now,
Mm-hmm.
if someone passed,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I'd go through the emotions all over. Like it'd suck. I'd be heartbroken, but I think I'd be like, this is life and I'm going to get through it. I know the outcome. I'll be okay.
Because it might be unfair because a loss of a loved one is tough. And it may be unfair what I have to say, so let me know if you feel like it's unfair. But I believe that if you are a disciple of Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
almost by force, you have to grow. Like if you're not growing, then are
You're
you
not
really
yeah.
a disciple, right?
Yeah.
And the story that I always go back to in regards to like seeing growth, because
Mm-hmm.
growth sometimes it's hard to quantify. It's hard to like, you have to sometimes catch yourself and be like, oh, hey, let me like reflect on my life for the last 5 years and has there been growth, right?
Yeah.
And to measure growth, I feel like one of the ways to measure it is tests.
Yeah.
And so I remember the disciples on the boat with Jesus and they start freaking out. Jesus is sleeping. They're like, yo, we're about to die. Like, help us out. And he calms the storm and he tells them, you guys have such little faith. Like, come on, get it together. A couple chapters later, the same disciples are on a boat through a storm, but this time there was no Jesus. And according to how it's written, nobody was freaking out. So right then and there, I see two scenarios that are very similar. One where they're freaking out and one where they're no longer freaking out. And the way that I always put it is they're not freaking out because I've been through this with Jesus.
Yeah.
And I know that I'll be okay. And so they don't freak out until, they see Jesus walking on the water. They're like, oh, who is that? What is that? But my point is like, and that's why I asked, do you feel that there's been growth since then? Because, and I followed that up with, if somebody else passed near you, do you think you would handle that better than you did? Because from what you said with your mom, you're like, you were devastated. You were ready to rebel. You wanted nothing to do with God. You were reading promises and you're like, nah.
Yeah.
How could this be, And so do you feel like your faith was made stronger that if somebody were to pass away now, that you'd be able to process it better, I guess?
I think so. I think the emotions of grief are still going to be there. The hurt is still going to be there. Like that's all going to be the same.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's just, like the outcome. Like how I said, it's like, I know now I'll be okay. Because I think that's the main thing. When it first happened, you have no idea what life is going to look like. In your sense, your life is gone. Like your world fell apart. And I think it'll suck. It'll be painful. I think the questions will be there like, why, God, why? But I think I'll know God's got me. Like my life is still going to be a good life, not because of who I have or what I have, but because he's given me this life and he has a purpose for me.
Right.
So I think so. I think because I did all of that processing of like, what's the point of her death and why do people die and like all that. So I'd hope so. Now you said it's easier to say always when you're outside of the box than in, but
100%.
Because right now I think about like something that'll hurt. I don't even want to say it because I feel like, okay, if you die, if it's like someone older than you, someone next to you, but my kids before I do, that's another kind of pain.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, God, don't test me with that, please. Like, please, as a mom.
Yeah.
That, like, I feel like it makes more sense, like, when a mom passes and so if you've ever lost, like, a child, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
So it's easier to say now, but who knows? I hope so.
And in the grander scheme of things, we'll always go back to this life is bigger than us.
Yeah.
And so a lot of our grief comes from, I'm never going to see them again. I'm never going to hold them again.
Mm.
But when we, you know, zoom out and see the grand picture, you know, when you're in it, you don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
When you're out of it, I think it's a little easier to swallow in regards to being like, well, they're not suffering anymore.
Mm.
We'd like to believe, or we do believe, that they're in paradise, you know? And so when we see that, it's like, okay, I'm going to miss them, but they're in a better place.
Yeah. It's like the coin. We have two choices because I think with death, people take I'm going to call it pride for lack of a better word,
Mm-hmm.
thinking they know what's best for them,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
thinking they know how God should and shouldn't operate,
Yeah.
what's fair and not fair in this world. And on the other side of that coin is humility of like, God, you're so much bigger than I am, and I have no idea why. It's the same question, right? Like,
Yeah.
why would you do this? I have no idea why. Same question, but one could come out prideful, like you picked the wrong thing, and one is like, God, I'm clueless, but you're bigger than me,
Mm-hmm.
and I will never understand. And I just have to just trust that what happened, you had complete control over. It was your will. Because, yeah, one can just make you cold, like stone heart, and the other one can break you to where God is holding you together, and he's the one to put you back.
Yeah. 100%. And I actually wrote something regarding this. What I wrote was, whatever circumstance you're going through, you have a choice from what perspective you look at it. Regardless of your choice, that coin, circumstance, has value.
Mm.
It is up to you if you cash in or not.
Yeah.
And it's true, because I feel like every coin is an opportunity. And some of us walk away from it. Because, again, we don't want to deal with it. We complain about it. And I promise you, it's much better for you to choose the harder way.
It's like if you're a Christian, you've heard of the parable of the talents, right? The coins. But it's like we're the coins in a sense. I've never heard of that perspective of like something hard comes and we just hide. That's the comfortable route.
Yeah.
Or how you say we cash it in for our investment. We're going to grow. There might be risk, but we might grow and compound and become a better person. It's like, what are we going to do?
And that's the thing. Now that you said risk, I don't feel like a lot of people like to take risks with their heart.
Mm-hmm.
They guard their heart. And then the Bible says guard your heart, but they're like, guess there's like a wrong way to guard your heart, where you're just like, nah. Nothing is going to touch this thing.
Yeah.
Like, they're put it in a vault, and it's like 100% protection.
Mm-hmm.
But to feel a little bit of a setback is okay. To feel a little bit of rejection is okay. Like, that's what we're all scared about.
Yeah.
We're like, if we do this hard thing, like, what if we don't make it? What if people laugh at us? What if tomorrow I don't feel better? Because that's the other thing about the American society. We want to, if we choose to do the hard thing, we want it to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
We don't want it to work months from now, years from now. We want it to work now. And what I went through, it was like 3 years. Plus it took me some time after that, like a year to get over it. I mean, you with your mom, how long do you think it like where you had peace?
It was a while because I think I stuffed it when I got pregnant and said the baby can't feel stressed. I'm not thinking about it. But then I remember he was a year and I'm like, I need to go to therapy.
Yeah.
So it was
a while.
I would say like more than 2 years.
And people don't want to do the hard work.
Yeah.
And that's the sad thing, because they don't want to face what's in front of them. But if they were to face what was in front of them, they would become so much better.
Mm.
And just like the word says, like, everything can be used for our good. And, you know, like they sing the song, like, what's that song? What the enemy meant for evil, God's using it for good. It's just perspective. Those lyrics right there, I hear perspective. Change your perspective. You're going through it. It sucks right now. In time, you're going to figure out that it was for something. And like for me personally, with the things that I went through with my parents, my father, it wasn't until I was a youth pastor and, you know, I gave my testimony of what I went through, and a couple of kids went up to me and we're going through the same thing. And we thank you so much for sharing that. And they started asking me for advice, asking me for encouragement. And right then and there, I was like, if this is the only reason why I had to go through what I went through, 100% worth it. Because in the same way, I see us one day going to heaven, seeing Jesus, and we can look him in the eye and ask him, was it worth it? Was everything that you went through worth it? And him looking back at us and saying, for you, every single second.
Yeah.
And that, for me, personally hits different.
Yeah.
And what he went through was torture. We got first world problems for the most part. And so, yeah, when those kids told me that, I was like, if this is the only reason, it's 100% worth it. I didn't understand it at first while or going through it. I'm grateful that God gave me the strength to be able to endure.
Yeah.
I did not understand it, but I also saw through that situation him giving me an identity of somebody of faith, somebody of courage, somebody who was brave, somebody who could endure, somebody who could champion through, somebody who could protect. And that identity stays with me for the rest of my life because I decided to keep moving forward. And not only that, but now, again, I can see there was a reason.
Yeah. And I think if you didn't take that choice, or I'll ask you the question, let's say you didn't take that choice, do you think you wouldn't have had the growth, so you wouldn't have been the husband or the father that you would be today?
100% no. Because for me, the other side of that coin is I use everything that I went through, same thing like you, as an excuse to just like, I'm just going to rebel. I'm going to go out partying. I'm never going to get married. I'm just going to go from girl to girl. Marriage is a sham. Like, and then I would probably think like, I don't want to put my kids through this. Yeah. Like, why ever even get married? Like, I'm just kind of, try to live a comfortable life. I'm going to live away from my parents, live away from my family. I'm just going to do my own thing. And in that scenario, I just see myself spiraling and spiraling and spiraling. Like, I don't know how deep I would go in that spiral, but that's what I would see. And because I'm just a person that sees black or white, so I'm either all in or I'm all out. And
but do you I always say, like, do you think it was 100% your choice, or there's some of like God pulling you and be like, nah, you're made for more of this? That goes to like free will or not?
Yeah,
right?
You're going deep where it's just like,
I'll stop there.
Yeah, for real, because it's like, is it free will or? Because
I feel like some people. Because I think that's, how yesterday's podcast we said there's two types of heart. You have to choose your heart. Because that's, for me, like me hearing you say, just not get married, just go to the world, like spiral, that's hard. Like waking up every single day, like, this is the decision I stuck with. Or even how I said with me, if I chose to rebel, be like, look what my family did, the sacrifice they did, just completely turning against it. Like every day I'm choosing to like ignore that or like go away from that. Like that's hard, I think.
Yeah.
So like for people to like just do that, like I don't know, like they have to completely flip the switch.
Yeah, and I think what they do is what's that? It's a hard word to pronounce. Compartmentalize.
Compartmentalize.
Yeah, that. They do that and they put things away that won't challenge them, and they'll just keep what will justify their actions. And in the moment, for a while, I think I see those people just like, yeah, this is awesome. This is like,
Yeah.
I'm fine. Like I don't have no stress anymore and blah, blah, blah. But as time goes on, then you see how lonely you are.
Yeah.
Then you see that you don't have the love and support that you wish you had. Because regardless of any choice that you make, there's, I believe, like a DNA within us, like a desire within us that kind of like, it looks different, but the characteristics are there. Like you are to be loved and you are to love. I believe most of us are made to procreate,
Yeah.
to have a family, to raise kids, like to have all these fulfilling moments. And if you choose not to do any of that, like there's something inside of you missing. And that's why people like start spiraling, just because it goes from one thing, let's say womanizing, but that's only satisfying for so long. Then you go to the next thing, maybe alcohol. That's only satisfying for so long. Then you go to drugs and then harder drugs, and you just spiral because you're just looking just like, let me get that little hit of dopamine. But then it's like, what do they say about meds? If you take them for too long, you get
Immune.
Like it doesn't do an effect to you. So then now you got to look for the next thing.
Yeah.
And so it is hard, but perspective, especially in the moment, they're not seeing it as hard. That's them living their life. But with time, there's something inside of them that goes, you're not happy.
Yeah. I feel like, and it's even psychological. I remember taking a psychology course and they go through like the first, like the stages of life you go through, right? One is identity, one is whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And like at the end, before you die, it's like, are you happy with what you succeeded in life? Like everyone has those thoughts. Like right before the end of the years, you're just like looking back, and I always think that I'm like, I hope I don't regret, your life. But I'm still gonna stand what I say. I think kind of how I mentioned we can see God through a prideful lens or a humble lens.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how, but I believe he is sovereign, but I believe he gives free will. I think there's always a portion of grace calling you to his predestined people. Like, nah. You're not meant for that life.
Yeah. And I think some of us have to go through something like that.
Yeah.
To build bridges with other people that you're going to encounter in life. Because let's say if I didn't go through certain things, like what I went through with my family, then I wouldn't have that bridge with, let's say, other kids that went through that.
Yeah.
If you lived a religious life, never went partying or whatever, there's almost always like a chip on your shoulder, like, oh, like you party? Like, what's wrong with you? But like, if you went through that something like that and you're not like that anymore, but you're just like, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
There's that bridge. And so there's a lack of judgment. There's more empathy.
Mm-hmm.
There's more understanding. And that's a whole other topic that we can get into, is the understanding part.
Yeah.
The whole, oh, I had no idea. But the understanding builds a bridge. And I think it is just important for us to always see every situation like a two-sided coin. And we have to see every situation as an opportunity, and we should be cashing in. Because as we cash in, we're only going to get wealthier in regards to wisdom, experience, understanding, humility. And so, just to wrap things up, I just want to encourage whoever's listening, look at every situation as a two-sided coin and just think to yourself, what am I going to choose? The choice isn't always easy. And sometimes maybe you're wise enough to call a friend, text a friend. Maybe you're wise enough to go into your word, maybe pray, to seek that help, to be able to make the right choice. Because I do believe personally that there is a right choice.
Mm-hmm.
There's a choice that God wants you to make because there's going to be growth from it. There's going to be blessing from it. There's going to be a learning experience from it. And again, as we keep saying, as you grow, you'll be able to bless so many more other people.
Yeah.
And we'll be able to fulfill our purpose of blessing others. And so I just want to encourage you in whatever situation that you're in right now, make the choice.
And I want to add that if you felt like you took the wrong choice, remember God can redeem those moments and turn it all for his good. But I think sometimes it takes, how you said, like that pause before you decide what side of the coin you're going to use or spend on. Take that pause and maybe write it down and say, if I do scenario A or scenario B, what is better? Remember, we're not looking for instant gratification. We're looking for that investment. Sometimes all you have to do is just take a pause and write it down. Or I said, talk it out.
Well, that about wraps up this episode. We want to thank you so much for tuning in. We just ask you to please like, subscribe, share, and write a comment if this episode helped you at all, or if you need advice, or if you have a question. We'd love to connect with you. And so we thank you again for taking the time, and we will see you next time.
Yes, can't wait.